Hello there, social distance Celly here. Welcome back to Cell Reviews. Before we start off with the review that I've got planned for today, I would just like to apologize for the lack of videos on the channel. I haven't been uploading as of late. Well, pretty much for the last, I believe the last 6 months. Last upload was in February, and pretty much it's been just down to my mental health, which is something I prefer to discuss in private, and it's not the right time at the moment. But yes, I just wanted to apologize for that. We shall be breaking down the album by Ronnie Jules. So get a cup of coffee, lemon, whatever you fancy, but because this is about to get heavy. But before we actually begin this review, I want to take the opportunity to thank all of my subscribers and humbly ask their new viewers to the video or the channel that they could actually subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification button so that whenever we upload a new video, you'll be notified. It will really help us out a lot in terms of growth. So let's get on with the review.
Do people respond differently because of the fact that you are people from two different backgrounds?
Yeah, they do, but that's not exclusive to America. I mean, race is used as a polarizing agent the world over. I think in our country, entertainers aren't used to getting mushed together, you know, but I think we're just genuinely friends. We know we're different races. We know we're from different parts of the country.
What?
Yeah, I don't do the I don't see color thing because we do. And I think that's what makes us dope.
For those that don't know, Ronnie Jules are a hip-hop duo consisting of ELP and Killer Mike. The group were formed after the pair were introduced by Jason DeMarco, who is the executive producer of Cartoon Network. What are the odds of this? The two obviously became best of friends, in which now they have moved on to create the rap group Run the Jules, which is what we're talking about today. They have released 3 previous albums, which were self-titled albums called Run the Jules 1, 2, 3, and now they've got RTJ 4. So it's a bit of a stylistic change. It's not really called Run the Jules anymore. 4 is called RTJ 4, and they are set to disrupt the hip-hop scene with their brand of politically charged, hard-hitting, hardcore brand of hip-hop. They also done something very unprecedented with their 4th project, RTJ 4, by giving it away for free. This is very unprecedented because not a lot of people do this. I mean, they probably would give away free mixtapes, and also in a world in which Nipsey Hussle actually existed and charged $100 for his mixtape. This is the definition of unprecedented. I will put the website links in the description so that you can go and get the album for yourself. And trust me, it is worth the purchase. Well, of course it was worth it. It's free. So before we dissect this album, let's talk numbers. Commercially, RTJ 4 debuted at the Billboard 200 chart for albums at number 10. It boasts of 38,000 copies sold, in which 30,000 was from pure sales. If anything, this actually proves people are willing to own music as long as it's free. This is such a shock. I never saw this coming. Well, where you find it annoying that the album is one long track like a DJ mix after you've downloaded it and not cut off to individual tracks, you must admit it is pretty smart marketing on their perspective, because they do have a physical CD announced to be dropping in stores in September 2020, in which this one they are gonna charge for the project. I can actually see why they released the long form so that you can actually buy the CD to have the individual tracks cut up. So I just like to put out the props there, because I personally believe the marketing team also done a fantastic job in terms of getting this into the spaces that they need to see. In terms of the visuals on YouTube, they've really hit the marketing side of this really well. We're now going to talk about the personnel that were recruited for the project. The project recruited 4 co and additional producers onto the project, which were Boots, who is actually known for his work with Beyonce's Formation and pretty much most of his works with Beyonce. And he has also done Ron Jules 2, 3, and now 4. So it's not as if this is his first recruit. He's actually been doing works with Ron Jules since his formation. It also includes Little Shalimar, whose real name is Toby Schwartz. Wilda Zobi is also another co-producer that has been recruited onto this project. It goes by the alias of Wilda Schwartz. And the last producer that was actually recruited for this project is Nana C-Tech. He's actually done a lot of work on Wale's Attention Deficit album in 2009, and also Beyonce's albums with Jay-Z, The Carters, in 2018. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal that he's actually been recruited onto this project. It must also be noted as well that DJ Premier does actually have a feature on this, but if you're expecting a DJ Premier kind of production, it doesn't happen. He only provided the scratches on the track Ooh La La, which was the lead single for this project, and that's pretty much what DJ Premier contributed to, onto the project. It's just the scratches. Also, must also be noted as well, DJ, I gotta shout out the DJs, because I love it when I see DJ scratches. When I hear DJ scratches on track. I gotta give props to DJ Trackstar, who also supplied scratches for Yankee and the Brave EP. That's the first track. Oli Kalama, F Word, and Never Look Back. He also done the scratches for Out of Sight as well. Not just him as well. There's Cup Master DJ as well that also supplied the scratches for Goonies vs. E.T. ASAP Ferg, who actually provided an uncreated performance with just a few words really, where on the track Firing Squad Radiation, where he lent a helping hand with the vocals. I personally thought he was big enough commercially to actually provide more than just a few lines in the final track at the end of the track. I thought he deserved an appearance like 2 Chainz gained an appearance on Out of Sight. But that being said, maybe 2 Chainz got that big based on his album success, who knows. But in all fairness, I thought ASAP Ferg was hard done by on this album. The official guest on the album actually includes appearances by 2 Chainz, Pharrell Williams, Zach De La Rocha, Greg Nice, who is from Nice and Smooth. Now let's go on to dissect this album, starting with the cover art. They have always used this similar cover art. Now, on the first Run the Jewels, it was the cover art of a skeleton making a gun symbol or gesture, whilst the other brought a chain. This to me suggested that there were no gifts being accepted, or whatever your good gesture might be, you'll be destroyed for it. Those were the 2 kind of ideas that I got from looking at the cover art in the first instance. It also suggested that this is a practice unto death, hence the skeletal diagram. It also suggests the inability of death, even if you try to persuade the Grim Reaper. RTJ too had the exact same gesture, but the hands were wrapped like a mummy. So this suggests, even like in ancient history times, in the time of Egypt, that despite your victuals, you aren't accepted, possibly making a reference to how the pharaohs used to treat their slaves and their subjects and all their citizens. This is very interesting as well, because the ideas that I was starting to get from noticing these 2 albums is the idea of acceptance, is the idea of lack of control, lack of presence. That's those were the lack of control and not being heard. Those were the ideas that I was getting from this. RTJ3 had the same gesture, but this time it was in gold. However, the hand on the right is no longer holding a chain. It seems to form a fist. It's important to highlight this change and its release date as well, which was on December 24th, 2016. This was RTJ3. Christmas Eve as its traces to Christianity, as they claim that Christmas, which is December 25th, was the birthday of Christ. This plays a key role, as Christ was a messenger of peace with the hand in gold. This again echoes back to the time of the Romans, who were in power during the time of Christ, as this was regarded as the golden age of civilization by many historians, due to the conquest, due to Greece's conquest over Persia, who controlled a great deal of the world back then. Greek and Roman mythology was rife as well, ushering in an age of free thinkers and philosophers and a new way of doing things. It is also important to note the biblical references as well that this ancestor connotates, especially in regards to the statue of Nebuchadnezzar, whose head was in gold, which gold was symbolizing the Persian rulership. The next being the bronze, which symbolizes the Greek rulership, and the next being iron, which symbolized the Roman rulership. The next being clay, which could be interpreted as America today. In the vision that Nebuchadnezzar told to Daniel, and in which Daniel was interpreting, the clay and the iron were trying to mix together, but they couldn't mix together. The reason why I say that clay represents America today is because they are the only land on the entire planet in which they have sovereignty, in which a human being actually has sovereignty because of their constitution. The constitution actually allows you to actually have a lot of freedoms that many other countries won't have, like free speech, or a right to bear arms, for example, or even a right to not speak if it incriminates you. This is sovereignty at its finest compared to other countries, where they prefer an authoritarian approach, whether it's lenient or overlord. And also, it must be noted, it goes back onto Genesis 2:7, which says that that God created dust from the man from the dust of the ground, which of course clay is a natural resource which also comes from the ground. Clay needs to be mixed with water, and it can be used for things like pottery, sculpting, building houses, etc., you name it. With all these clues, this shows that America and its philosophy on people is not mixing well. They have adopted ideas from Rome, which is, for example, the Senate, their monuments, the way that they build things. This all came from Rome. So what does this mean for RTJ4? I personally think that this RTJ3 was a foreshadowing of the RTJ4, because RTJ4 cover art is forming the same gesture as RTJ3. However, it is in the resemblance of an iron, symbolizing Rome. However, due to their message on their site, they had released the album earlier than planned. Not only because it was due to the civil unrest of the killing of George Floyd, but I could actually speculate that it was also because it was being leaked. So therefore, they gave it away. So therefore, they released it. Why it's free, I would never know. But I personally think that maybe it's because of the whole George Floyd situation. I do think it is because of that. Now, quickly going back to the George Floyd situation, in which he was killed by the police officer. This of course suggests that America still has the traits of Rome, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of the Senate, in terms of their monuments, in terms of their legal system, their sports, their stadium, etc., their ideologies. All of these things are all well and good, but when America tried to introduce their policies, their own policies, this is when in terms of being sovereign as a human being on all these things, as a result of this, it has led to people finding it very hard to actually unite, because they're not necessarily agreeing with the policies that America has introduced. They're not agreeing with the legal system within America, where people are so sovereign that you can practically do a citizen's arrest, things like that, which can't be found in most other countries. And as a result, it has led to situations in which people find it truly difficult to truly unite. But hey, that's just a theory, an album theory. Don't think I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna move on now to talk about the message within this album and what it's talking about, what I think it's talking about. The album has a few main themes. It's actually very focused. This is why I gotta give it a lot of props here. It's actually very focused, and it doesn't have a lot of sub themes in there. It's just the main theme of just rebellion and how one can be an ideal catalyst for change and what to do once you actually achieve your change. It was a very careful and concise message detailing the need for change in the current society. They proposed a new world in Goonies vs. E.T. They also introduced their problems with the current world in Walking in Snow, arguing the right wing do not live up to their Judeo-Christian values, asking if Jesus stood for this. Killer Mike finished up this point by asserting that that the state killed Jesus himself, suggesting that the right wing's Christian values is actually a facade, as under their watch, Jesus would have been killed in a similar fashion for what he preached. For example, the unjust stoning of the woman that committed adultery, where only she was liable for the stoning and not the man. However, the law states that both are to be stoned. Jesus actually intervened at this point, asking those without sin to cast the first stone. Of course, if they are perverse in the law and favoring one above the other, they are with sin. So they couldn't obviously throw the stone because they're automatically guilty. Now, by this argument, it suggests that the right wing do not step in to assert justice where necessary. Just is actually a track that adds to their main theme of the need for rebellion, suggesting that the citizens of the US are still slaves because the former presidents could be found on the national currency, which is the dollar bill. You're still looking up to them, you're still working for that dollar bill, so in turn you're still working for the slave masters, so to speak. The fourth verse, however, explored the sub-theme of self-transformation. This track forces the listener to examine themselves. In this verse, Killer Mike recounts that the lessons in which he had learned from his father and questioned it. This questioning was demonstrated when he asked his father if his mother was included in not giving money to women. Although it's unclear what his father's response to this question was, and I think this was actually intentional, because I believe that the importance of the message here was to actually always question, and to as this is the way you will learn, as this is the way you can critically think for yourself and decide what you want to do rather than take the advice that you've just been given. So this is a good way to continue moving forward. This fourth verse shows from Killer Mike also showed the importance of not looking back whilst going through change or any change. So this suggests that one cannot stay in the past. On a greater theme to the album, this is actually very cohesive to their main theme, as it paints the picture of the revolution being completed, and once this is done, we cannot mourn the old world and we must embrace the new world. Round Up is a track to show the importance of confidence in who you are, which was demonstrated in the outro of the track, and to also have confidence in what you do, which was demonstrated by the last line of the verse again by Killer Mike, by saying, not a holy man, but I'm moral in perverseness, so I support sex workers unionizing their services. This message seems to be adding to their main theme of revolution, showing the importance of acceptance of oneself as an individual and the protection of a group, which can be allegorized by the unionizing of the sex workers. I personally think that the album message, the whole album cohesiveness, in terms of the album itself, the way they constructed their stories, it was top-notch quality. 10 out of 10 for me. That's not an official rating. I'm gonna give an official rating much later on, but definitely the story is grasping. I'm not going to talk about the album's quality of instrumentation. The instrumental break in a few words for the firing squad, as well as Oli Kalama F word, shows the creativity of the production team hired. The track Ooh La La contained a sample of Gangstar, which was, funny enough, a duo consisting of DJ Premier and also the late Guru MC, may God rest his soul. But yeah, it's kind of the similar dynamic in which ELP and Killer Mike has, except that ELP can actually rap as well, where DJ Premier cannot rap, if we're comparing the two. The track heavily sampled the sample Ooh La La, which was of Greg Nice of the group Nice and Smooth, used in their future on DWYCK. It was used throughout the choruses of the track. This worked fairly well in my honest opinion, as a way of paying homage to the groups Gangstar as well as Nice and Smooth, most likely for paving a way to have them perform like they have been. Out of Sight was actually a beautiful produced track in my honest opinion. It contained a sample from Foster Silver's on the track Misdemeanor back in 1977. I hope I got that right. Mainly using the drum patterns throughout. This effective use of sampling was poignantly delivered, especially with him saying what you gonna do on an 8-bar loop at the end of its chorus, as well as the use of his cadence throughout the track with the RTJ sample. This is very clever. Not only are these two separate tracks in terms of the themes and the topics that is being discussed on both tracks, heck, even the emotions. Outside is a lot more aggressive in compared to the original by Carpers. and especially with the what you gonna do line. That duality here really hones in on the love and hate dichotomy here, because on one track Ron and Jules can actually choose to approach on the side of love, and they can also choose to approach on the side of hate. Those things, it's very clever the way that they've presented this track. Now I'm going to talk about the cohesiveness of the album as well, in terms of the track list, how it was ordered. In all honesty, there is no complaints from me in this department. It was flawlessly ordered. It was flawlessly put together. No complaints from me whatsoever, and at a very good length of 40 minutes as well. I do have a couple of complaints. I think you may have gathered from the beginning, in which I expressed how A$AP Ferg was underutilized as a featured guest. It's not changed. I really hoped to have heard a bar or two from A$AP Ferg, but there was nothing. So that's the only downside about this album. Now my cuts from this album would be Goonies vs. E.T. as well as Holy Kalama F Word. Now these two tracks is not only really energetic, but the message that they really went on, I believe if you really wanted to actually understand the whole album, you can just listen to these two tracks and you will understand exactly what they're trying to go for in their projects. But in terms of a takeaway, what can I take away from this album? I enjoy social commentary as much as anyone. I do feel like Killer Mike done a very compelling job, especially for someone who is apolitical like myself. I don't necessarily have a side. I'm pretty much a moderate when it comes to political talks, and I just call out BS whenever I see it. But in the way that they've articulated their points and presented it forward, they didn't really push any sort of ideologies that I thought would be counterproductive to what they're trying to achieve. But apart from the obvious vibes with A$AP Ferg, there was not really much rebuttals from my end. I actually got to listen to the world that they're trying to sell to me, to the world that they're trying to present to us, and the world that they're trying to build by what they're doing. And the more I listen to this album, the more I fall in love with the art. Even though I don't necessarily agree with all the points that they've raised within the album, I embrace the fact that they've used it in such a creative way to convey the point. And this is why I love hip hop, because albums like this, where you can stream out your thoughts, where you can get everything that you want out, and still make it very entertaining, is why hip hop exists. It has always had this special place for albums like this, because you look back on this album, once you hear it, you're gonna refer back to it as if something like this was to actually happen, in which most of these ideals were actually implemented. This would be the reference point for that. In terms of this album and its impact on the art form, the numbers may not reflect the quality of the album, and it doesn't, in all fairness. 30,000 even given away for free is pretty bad. It just shows that they're not very known commercially. But even with that being said, it's one of those albums that stuck out to me. And the only thing that I can take away from this is, how is it that artists who knows that these albums exist, they listen to this album, they can hear the quality immediately, yet they don't really get behind it. This is what's confusing to me. You would think, let's try and push this because we want this to be a representative of the culture that we're in. But this isn't the case. It's been pretty much Killer Mike and ELP pushing this album. And of course they've signed deals, etc. But what I'm trying to say is, for albums like this, I would really love it if I see different artists they listen to it and then they decide to tweet it out, they decide to post it on their socials, make their fan aware of this album. So that, because you can't get any more hip hop than this. This is hip hop in a nutshell. This is a hip hop classic in a nutshell. You may disagree with me when I throw that classic word in there, but I want you to name me another album that this year, maybe I'll go as far to say last year or even 2018, that is on the same level as this. So that's my only takeaway. I just felt like the album was great for the culture. And just like that, I'm gonna bring this review to a close. Thank you so much for watching this review. I'm curious to know your thoughts in the comment section below. I didn't really give this, if I was to rate this album, it would definitely be an 85% out of 100. I do think that it's a near perfect, it's not near perfect, but it's still a very, very important album. Purely for the story alone and the instrumentation behind this project is the reason why I actually give this rating such a high rating. But with that being said, I hope that hasn't swayed you in how you view the album. I'm really curious to know what you think about the album. Don't hesitate to write in the comment section below. Share this with your friends, like your comments, and I will see you on the next video. Peace and have a good day.